Sheila Gunn Reid, she's the chief reporter and editor-in-chief at Rebel News, mother of three, conservative activist, and author of best-selling books, including Shop Notally. Sheila is here. She has been really watching what is called MAID, Medical Assistance in Death, and how Canada is, last year, killed 10,000 people. 10,000 people in assisted suicide, and they are expanding it to children and those who are depressed. It is terrifying. Sheila, welcome.
Glenn, thanks for having me on the show, and thanks for your interest in this. Now, you say 10,000, but we can't be sure of those numbers for a couple of different reasons. One of the reasons is that doctors are now in Canada under advisement from certain medical associations to obscure the numbers by listing the cause of death as the reason the person sought MAID, as we call it in Canada, medical assistance in dying, instead of the actual medical homicide at the hands of the state. But also, that 10,000 number, those are people who asked for medical homicide in writing. But in Canada, you don't have to ask in writing. You don't have to wait 10 days the way we used to have to wait. You can just ask for it and get it on the very same day now.
You know, we've always looked at ourselves as brothers and sisters. I mean, you know, after we got over 1812. And we have so much in common with Canada. And we are really sick down here. And I know this is in our future. But I just have such a hard time accepting that Canadians are okay with all of this.
You know, this really is the end stage of socialized medicine. The government is creating the suffering for so many of these people in Canada through their own ineptitude. But instead of doing a better job of alleviating people's suffering, they tell us it's our civic duty to drop dead and get out of a healthcare lineup. In Canada, the standard of care for knee replacement surgery is 182 days. If you get a knee surgery within 6 months, it's a miracle in our healthcare system. However, you can seek medical assistance in dying for the chronic pain you have because of your knee on the very same day you ask for it. Because in Canada, you don't have to be terminally ill. Wow. You just have to be chronically ill and dissatisfied with the level of care that you're receiving. Over the past 2 years, it's really been horrendous here in Canada. We had a 91-year-old lady who was in the news in Vancouver because she sought medical assistance in dying because she didn't want to go back into COVID lockdown in her nursing home. Young people with diabetes or eating disorders seeking medical assistance in dying. People who are dissatisfied with the government subsidized housing that they're receiving, saying, you know what, I don't want to be homeless, so I have a chronic illness, and so I'm going to seek medical assistance in dying. We've got at least 4 angels of death, I call them, running amok in the Veterans Affairs, telling up to 9 veterans that are on the record that instead of, helping them with whatever acute issue they're calling Veterans Affairs about, they're suggesting to them that perhaps because you're in such chronic pain, you're experiencing acute PTSD, wouldn't it just be better for everybody involved if you dropped dead?
Sheila, it is, I'm sure you have done the research on what happened in the Netherlands and Germany. This is exactly how it started the last time we had a Holocaust. And people just took their love and compassion and instead put it into the end of suffering and sided with the doctors and nurses who led the Holocaust, led it. The nurses and the doctors, not the guys in uniforms, the nurses and the doctors. It is terrifying. Now, is this happening because of shortages of care, or is this something else? What is this? Where is it coming from?
I think it's a combination of both. But like I said, the current state of Canadian healthcare is just prolonged suffering until you get to see a doctor, until you get to see a specialist, until you get to see somebody who will give you the surgery that you need.
Okay, but hang on. I grew up off just, a few miles off the border of Canada, and I know, medical tourism in America because you just couldn't get anything done. That's been that way for a long time.
Right.
One of my best friends, their brother died in Canada because by the time they got back for his cancer treatment, it was done. He was dead.
Sure, absolutely. But there are more people in Canada than ever. We have, like so many people in the Western world, an aging population that is not replacing itself. And so, like I said, it has become our civic duty to get out of that healthcare lineup by pursuing medical assistance in dying. But this is also, I think, some of that useless eater mentality where, we in Canada, and I think in much of the Western world, we don't value people once they are not, as they say, active contributing members of society. And it really has been a culture of death since 2016. All these changes in the Canadian healthcare system have happened with regard to medical assistance in dying. It was only legalized then. And like with abortion, they said it's going to be rare. It's only going to be in the most dire of cases. But now we have doctors offering it to just about anybody. 10,000 Canadians in a year. Those are approaching our died with COVID death numbers. It's becoming completely normalized. This is one of the leading causes of death in Canada.
That is crazy. So it's being open now to teenagers, children. How far is this going?
Teenagers, children, people who are experiencing acute mental health crises. Instead of offering them care, they can seek medical assistance in dying on the very same day that they're experiencing that acute mental health crisis.
Without any kind of therapy. So, in other words, I have a son or daughter who's suicidal. I bring them to the hospital, and the hospital can say to them, if you would like help, is your life worth living? Do you, whatever the questions are, and they can offer my son or daughter a way out.
They can mildly suggest it, and if your son or daughter asks for it and you are agreeable, they can receive it. We've seen doctors testify at parliamentary committee hearings that they would like this to be an option for parents of sick babies, which in a normal society, that's called infanticide. But in Canada, it's called compassion. I mean, it's absolutely appalling. March, just a few short months from now, mental illness that, as we know, just ebbs and flows, but that can be a reason that you can pursue medical assistance in dying in Canada. And, there's so many people, especially through my contacts in the veterans community, because this whole issue is hitting them very hard.
I bet.
There are so many of them who say, I call Veterans Affairs for help. I'm experiencing this thing. Some of them have even said to me, look, I did try to do something to myself, but it came and it went so fast. And what if I got the wrong person on the end of the line at Veterans Affairs? What would have become of me then?
My gosh. This is terrifying, Sheila. I want to make you aware. Have you ever heard of the movie The Black Stork?
No.
Nobody has. We have one of the only copies in our vault at my studios. It was made in 1917 or something. It was put out at the same time, eugenics were pushing death. And in one of the scenes, it's all about parents that have children who are sick, and the doctors and the nurses kill the children out of compassion. And in one scene, it shows Jesus appearing at the cradle of the baby, encouraging the doctor and nurse to kill the child. It is one of the most horrifying things you've ever seen. Obviously, they got rid of all of the copies. There's only 2 copies left now. One is, I think, in South Carolina in a vault of a university. and the other one is here. I'm going to send it to you. You need to see it, because we're going through this again. We are going through exactly the same kind of stuff, and that led us to the Holocaust.
And they're making the same kind of arguments again. In 2017, our state broadcaster here in Canada, the CBC, they published an article without any irony whatsoever saying that medical assistance in dying would be a net benefit to all of us because it would save $138 million annually from the Canadian healthcare system. These are people who need help. They don't need homicide. They need better care. They need better options. They need people, bureaucrats who are paid to help them, helping them when they call Veterans Affairs on the other end of the line. Medical assistance in dying might make a lot of doctors and bureaucrats' lives a little easier, but it is robbing Canada of good people who deserve help and who are contributing to our society, maybe not in financial ways, but because they are valuable people created in the image of the divine.
Oh, Sheila, we need more people like you in the world. Stu, what was the name of the baby? Baby Nauer? Yeah, baby Nauer, I think. Mm-hmm. Are you familiar with that? Because we have all the history on that, too, we could send to you.
Please do.
It is baby Nauer. Look him up. It is the case of a blind, deaf, and somewhat, I can't remember, disabled child in some way. And Hitler sent his personal physician to examine this baby to see if it wouldn't be better for the parents, for society, and for the child if they just euthanize. And that was the moment that you're going through right now, where they're making exactly the same case. And people have to know the history. You have to know. This is a lie with new suits telling you.
Yeah, there's nothing new under the sun, Glenn. It's funny that you mentioned that scene about Jesus in the black stork, because right now, this is being packaged up by some of the more progressive churches here in Canada. Yeah. If you can call them that. The United Church of Canada, I think, is more of a self-help group with a crucifix in the background. But they have on their website right now, if you go to unitedchurch.ca, they have a worship theme on death and dying, and they offer a prayer to those experiencing, medical assistance in dying, not to say to them that your life is worth living, but that this is an act of compassion and we should support these people, and this is what Jesus would offer them.
Oh, my gosh. Sheila, please stay in touch with me, will you?
I will.
And we will get those things up to you. I have so much respect for you and for everybody at Rebel News. You're doing God's work up there. Thank you so much.